We have 4 games on Thursday. Let's preview them. Let's look at the individual pickups for the day, the streaming options, who's in, who's out, what are we paying attention to. Of course, it's always going to start and end with Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and I know the answer to what Tigers dream of. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky, joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free, and we are available on all platforms. We're here. We're ready to double bang. I hope you're ready to double bang. You're thumbing up and you're leaving comments and all that stuff. Just the 4 games on Thursdays. We head into... It is a light week in general. The back end of the week is a little bit lighter than the front of the week. That's okay. Gives us plenty of opportunities to stream players in. So let's talk about that with these 4 games on Thursday. Let's go through the individual games. Let's see what's really sort of tickling our fancy. In the first game is Detroit. They are taking on the Charlotte Hornets in Charlotte. The Pistons are actually 1 point... Not the Pistons. Yeah, the Pistons are 1 point underdogs. The Hornets are 1 point favorites at the moment, which is a little weird, but that's okay. That's where we're at with that. Schedule-wise, both teams go Thursday and Saturday, and they play 4 games in Week 6. Bobby Klintman is out, and the Pistons did update the status of Ausar Thompson. He is doubtful. We know that he's been down in the G League doing some practice work, so he's not going to play on Thursday, but a doubtful tag would suggest that his return is coming really soon. I honestly just don't know how much they're going to play him. He's been obviously out a long time without being able to do contact. I think it'll be a slowish ramp up. And then because of the need of spacing Fontecchio and Beasley and Hardaway and all those sort of players, and yeah, Ron Holland's minutes will go away and you'll reduce a little bit from some of those other guys. But I am a little bit concerned that you won't get 27 from Ausar. Now, I guess the argument could be made that he doesn't need 27 to be a rosterable player, and it's okay to grab him and stash him in IL right now. But I just think that in terms of the upside of him, I don't think he's quite as good of a player as what Amen Thompson is. And the situation's somehow even a little bit more blurry or cloudy than what it is for Amen in Houston. But it's great that he's going to be back soon. Speaking of being back soon, Mark Williams is not. We just have no idea when the big fella is returning. He's not doubtful. He's out. We just don't know, and I am getting annoyed. I gave my mate, Josh Longstaff, I gave him a little bit of grace on the return for Williams, but we're just not hearing anything. And it continues to be a frustrating scenario that this popped up, when was it? Like the middle of September? So we're 2 months removed from this foot strain issue. I honestly, if you are holding Mark Williams, that's okay. But if you can't, then don't worry about it. I just don't know when he's coming. And obviously, every day that passes, we are 1 day closer to the return. But is that 100 days? Is it 3 days? Don't know. BDNR remains out. If Nick Richards comes back from his rib cartilage fracture before Mark Williams, I will be not astonished, but I will be just stunned that is how long it took Mark to return. Daquan Jeffries also out. What am I watching? Jalen Duren posted a very big game last time, 22 rebounds, and that's fantastic. The problem with that is, I thought he actually played horribly. First of all, he was allowing Nikola Vucevic to do anything he wanted to. Defensively, he still really struggles, and I still have concerns. Now, do not get this twisted. I am not saying that Isaiah Stewart's a better player than Jalen Duren. I don't think Isaiah Stewart's a very good player, but what I do know is that Duren has a lot of struggles, and he has some terrible defensive moments, and do not be surprised if there are games when he gets benched or there are minutes dropped or minutes split with Stewart. He is not this future stud at this point, Duren, where they're just going to pump those big minutes every single game into him. There are so many downsides to what he does on the court. So let's see how he gets utilized here. Now, when you're up against Charlotte and there's no centers on the other side, maybe this is an opportunity for him to post a big one. Or maybe he gets cooked by the little guys. On the Hornet side of things, we've seen a little bit of tension between Charles Lee and LaMelo Ball, and yesterday, Ball was benched. down the stretch for clearly some sort of disciplinary reasons, which I know Hornets fans are pretty upset about, to be honest, given the fact that there are players, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, who have had terrible moments all season and they don't get benched, but LaMelo does. Let's see, how does Charles Lee respond? How does LaMelo respond in this game? I don't think it's a problem, but it's probably the second time we've seen something like that occur. Either it's a benching, which happened in the last game, or it's Lee making some comments in a press conference about LaMelo and things that he's doing and not doing and things that he needs to do better. So we'll see where that, what direction that ends up going in. In terms of the streams, it's probably Tim Hardaway. You could go with Leaky Beasley there in Detroit, but with those guys, we're just going to use our regular two-sided coin to flip between who it is. And usually you weighted a little bit extra towards the starter, which is Tim. On the Hornets side of things, we had a good game last time from Trey Mann. That was largely, again, because LaMelo Ball was somewhat reduced in his playing time, but a guy that can always pop off is Man, not a must-roster guy, but on a day like this where not many teams going, he's there. Of course, Grant Williams, Moussa Diabate, they're always going to have some sort of option there for us. And I'm just going to double-check just to see if any sort of other injury notes popped up, because that does happen. Oh yeah, Trey Mann and Miles Bridges actually both just popped up as probable on the injury report for Charlotte, so that shouldn't impact too much, but it is something that we do need to note. The second game of the day, it's Minnesota and it is Toronto. The Wolves on the road are 7-point favorites. Both teams play Thursday, Sunday. Minnesota has 3 games week 6. Toronto has 4. Injury-wise, there's no Kelly Olynyk. Emmanuel Quickley, we're looking at mid-December now, so another 3 weeks or so. That's yuck. You've had the question already, what do you do with Emmanuel Quickley? Do you drop him? I find it really hard to drop a top 50-ish sort of a player, and that's where I think Quickley is. But that's going to depend on individual circumstances. If your IL is filled up with okay, well, let's put it this way. If you've got Chet Holmgren in your IL, who's obviously a better player than Quickley, but is Chet even back before March? I'd be probably more inclined to hold Quickley, but you might have Scotty Barnes. You might have Kevin Durant. You might have Tyrese Maxey in your IL, which, of course, 2 of those guys are going to be back in the next day or so. But how you're balancing your IL and how you're going in the standings will depend on how you can hold Quickley. But my initial instinct would be you hold him. Bruce Brown's out. Bruno Fernando's out. Kelly Olynyk's out, as I mentioned. But as we sort of thought, Scott Barnes has been upgraded to questionable. I do think that he will play in this game. And that will probably mean the end of old mate Ochai Agbaji. Jacoby Walter, Gary Trent III, he has been upgraded to questionable as well. I think he'll play some minutes in the rotation, but yeah, not a huge amount. We also got a couple of later additions to the Wolves injury report, and they're both guards. Mike Conley and Dante DiVincenzo, both questionable, which means deeper leagues. Actually, give me a chance to do this. For your double Onyx, Platinum, Diamond, Titanium League moves, maybe you go to Robert Dillingham, but otherwise we go to Nickeil Alexander-Walker as the interesting guy if one or both of those players are out. So Conley's the guy I do want to watch on the Wolves because the 30 minutes a night is what they needed to get back on track. And did that contribute to this issue that he's dealing with? I think it's his back at the moment. No, it's his toe. We'll see. And then on the Raptors, Jakob Poeltl has just been dominating. So if Barnes does play, which I believe that he will, how does that impact Poeltl? Poeltl's field goal percentage is through the roof, and it's going to come down. It's coming off a lot of floaters, and some of his usage is up. I don't think his minutes are necessarily going to hit, but we'll take a hit. But let's see how he differs in a game with Barnes back. In terms of streams, Alexander Walker could really bump up to the top of the stream list if Conley and DiVincenzo are out. And then in Toronto, we go to Davion Mitchell because Quickley's out. Mitchell, we know what's going to happen. 7 points, 6 assists, 2 steals, a 3. It's not great, but it's something, and we can have a level of reliability in the floor production that he brings. We've 2 more games from Thursday. We'll do streams of the day. We'll look at a bit of chunky stuff as well. Before we do that, though, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app right now. I beg you. Because what is Game Time? It is the site, the app, that you need to go to get your tickets. And Game Time has introduced a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting those tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. It just cuts out the fluff. It shows you the good tickets. It cuts out the bad ones. So that you know that what ticket you're getting is value, saving you time and money. They've got the views from your seat as well. They've got the best ticket coverage package in the entire ticketing world. The purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. The lowest price guarantee gets you a credit of 110% of the difference if you find that same ticket somewhere else in that same area, and you get the panoramic views from your seat as well by using the Game Time app. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, use the account. First of all, create an account and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. The next game for us to take a bit of a look at here. Third game of the day on Thursday. It's Utah and San Antonio. And I wish we had a little bit more information about injuries on these guys. We don't, but we'll talk about what we do and don't know at the moment. No spread available because of the injury uncertainty. Schedule-wise, both teams Thursday, Saturday. Utah plays 4 in Week 6 and San Antonio plays 3. It's Walker Kessler that remains questionable for the Jazz. Jeremy Sohan's going to be out for the Spurs. And then it's Devin Vassell and Victor Wembanyama. I would think that Vassell is going to play. He sat out with knee soreness, which is a little bit of a worry, considering that he had foot surgery and not knee surgery. And then Wemby is dealing with a knee issue as well. So, if Vassell and Wemby are out, Keldon Johnson, Zach Collins, really, really strong streamers. Julian Champagnie and Steph Castle, all of their value rises up. If it's just Wemby out, then it's Zach Collins and old mate Goldfinger Charlie Bassey, who can step into a larger role. And if it's just Vassell out while Wemby's playing, then it's, again, more Bubbles, it's more Castle, it's more Keldon as well. And if Walker Kessler is out, obviously a boost to John Collins and a big boost to Kyle Filipowski. And those of you in deep leagues would look at Drew Eubanks in that situation. So what else am I watching for? Well, John Collins, because he's been awesome, much better than I anticipated. I still don't believe it's going to stick, but also I didn't believe it'd get here in the first place, so remember that. So what happens if Kessler returns? Does he stay starting? Does he play the 4? Does Filipowski stay starting? Does he go back to 22 minutes a night? I don't know, and I want to see. On the Spurs, I want to see a little bit of Bubbles here. Julian Champagnie, old Buble. What does he bring? And how dependent is it on Vassell being out? Because Champagnie's just been sort of just sticking around, bad smelling at the back end of a 12-team roster, and I think he can stick there with Sohan out and those other guys still sort of unsure. In terms of streams, Filipowski is available in a lot of spots, and if it's not him, we probably go to Isaiah Collier. Keontae George was really good in the second half of last game, so that sort of muted some of Collier's stuff, and we need to see what direction they end up going back with that one. And then Champagnie is probably the stream guy for the Spurs. You've got Keldon, you've got Castle there as well. And then, of course, it would be Zach Collins and Bassey who jump ahead of that list if we do see that Vic Wemby is out. Imagine calling him Vic Wemby. Couldn't be me. Last game. It is the Orlando Magic on a back-to-back, taking on the Los Angeles Connects. The Lakers are 5-point favorites. Both teams play Thursday, Saturday, and they both have 4 games in Week 6. Injury-wise, Paolo Banchero is out, and I think we might get Wendell Carter Jr. back in this game. Carter was questionable for Wednesday's game, but he's been ruled out. He was unlikely to play both of the games in the back-to-back anyway. The fact that he was questionable and then ruled out for Wednesday makes me think he will play on Thursday. But I'm going to put him as questionable for now. On the Lakers, Wood, Hayes, Vanderbilt Bar, all going to be out. Rui Hachimura, I don't know. I would say he's probably less likely than 50% to play with his ankle sprain. And then there's the two that honestly just don't matter. It's Jalen Hood-Schifino and LeBron James Jr., both questionable and both not going to play irrespective. The Hachimura one is the big question. I actually want Rui to play because I want to see what happens with Reddish and Russell and Rui and Connect, because that's really the big question around the Lakers at the moment. And that's what we want to see. Dalton Connect has been absolutely on fire. 67% of his threes over the last 3 games, which won't hold. He's at 70%, I think, on his twos and 98% on his free throws. Just stuff that just tells you that he's the best shooter in NBA history, which of course he isn't. But it's all about role now, because we know that's coming down. You don't need to have that bashed over your head. You know it's not holding. It's also not going to be 20% like it was before that. But now it's about role. Does he start? But over who? Over Reddish? Over Rui? Is he a starter but plays 27, or is he a starter that plays 38? Or does he play 31? We don't know any of these answers. I've grabbed him. I actually grabbed him in 5 leagues, which is a lot for me. And I'm not a big Connect believer. But it's, as always, it's about opportunity, ride a hot streak, and are there spuds in front of him? And yeah, that's all happening at the moment. And I'll end up dropping Connect, I'm certain, in a number of these leagues as we move forward. In terms of stream, guys, in Orlando, it is probably Mr. Black. But Anthony Black is he's going to Harvey Dent. Like, we know this. He's all over the shop. Big game last time. He might be useless on Wednesday and another big one on Thursday. Or he might big it up on Wednesday and be terrible Thursday. I don't know. But he's going to get the 22 to 26 minute role. He'll get you some defensive stats, and at least there's a level of floor in that sort of production. On the Lakers, speaking of defensive stats, Cam Reddish. 2 steals, 2 blocks last game. You're good for steals from him. You probably get 1 shot from him. Like, he doesn't do anything else. But the defensive stats is what he has turned into. He's a Alex Caruso, Keon Ellis type defensive stat streamer at the moment. If he moves to the bench, you're going to be less inclined to be interested in it. But we talk about it and we see exactly where it goes. But for the moment, there's a little streamy value there in Cameron Reddish. Let's take a look now. Remember, there is no Thursday, Friday back-to-back. No back-to-backs leading into NBA Cup games. So let's take a look at some chunky parts of the schedule. The rest of this week, plus Monday of week 6, all streamable days. All of these players are available in a lot of different spots, and they've got 3 games in the next 5 nights. Grant Williams. I don't think that Richards or Mark Williams are back. Grant's going to start most of these games, all of them, I'm guessing, and useful enough. Peyton Watson, with no Aaron Gordon, yeah, he should be rostered. He's 20% on Yahoo. Mo Wagner. That's mainly just through bulk of games. Wendell may be returning, and I think Mo will stay relatively secure. Old mate Jamal Mosley loves having the high efficiency usage center on the bench. Especially with the other bench players, he likes to have that guy there. So Wagner's role is pretty secure. Isaiah Stewart with the 3 games. Fanapants, Kevin Huerter. Now the Kings have got a bad schedule, but now they run into a busy schedule. Because they played Monday and they play again Friday. But that means Friday, they've got 3 games in 4 nights starting Friday. And Malik Monk probably doesn't play. I expect DeRozan and Sabonis do, but Huerter's one of those guys that if you're going to add him, you've got to give it 3 or 4 games so you can at least get 2 good ones with 2 bad ones mixed in, because you're never going to pick the right game as to what's good and what's not. And then Chris Dunn as well. I don't know how long Norman Powell's out, but Dunn's got to start, and he probably gets a little bit more to do. As to who else starts, whether it's Porter or Coffey or Jordan Miller, I don't know. But Dunn at least is already, Dunn is already starting, so there's value in that. But you could throw any of those other guys in there, probably Porter, then Coffey, then Mann in that order. But it is a tough one to get a read of until we sort of get some information, which we might get. I think it's today's game that we'll get some information on that one. We'll come back and talk streams of the day, but today's episode is brought to you by Chime. There's been a point in all of our lives, and maybe if you haven't gotten there yet, maybe you will get there soon, where you have to start making serious money moves. You've got to start getting serious about your finances. You have debts to pay off, tuition fees. You've got to save for a house, for a car. You've figured out what your credit score is, and you need to see what you need to do about that. Well, Chime helps you take control of your finances by using a Chime checking account with features like no maintenance fees, fee-free overdraft up to $200, and getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit, which you can learn more about at chime.com/NBA. Chime is a financial institution. It's got that sense of community, and it enables you to get that temporary increased overdraft limits, give you boosts from friends. That's what it is, boosts from friends. That additional $200 with the extra, with no fees, the extra $200 in those overdrafts. Chime helps you make progress with fee-free overdraft up to $200, and that next deposit is applied to your balance. You get no monthly fees, no maintenance fees, and there's over 50,000 fee-free ATMs that are available to you. You get complimentary boosts for eligible members that temporarily increase a friend's SpotMe limit. And when you give a boost, they can boost you back temporarily to raise your limit. Set up direct deposit in your Chime account, and after a qualifying direct deposit of $200, Chime will notify you to enroll in SpotMe. With an activated debit card, Chime will spot you up to $200 when you exceed your balance, and your next direct deposit is applied to your negative balance. Chime never charges fees or interest for using SpotMe. So make your fall finances a little greener by working towards your financial goals with Chime. Open your account in 2 minutes at chime.com/NBA. That's chime.com/NBA. Chime feels like progress. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bank Corp NA or Stride Bank NA. Members FDIC, SpotMe eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Boosts are available to eligible Chime members enrolled in SpotMe and are subject to monthly limits. Terms and conditions apply. Go to chime.com/disclosures for details. Okay, let's hit streams. what are we streaming in for the day on Thursday? So we'll start by looking at the streams of the day. 10-teamer, I do like Davion Mitchell there. It's not it's not a day where there's an elite clear streamer at this point until we get injury news, like where Zach Collins would be right at the top of the list if Wemby is out, right? Or Nickeil Alexander-Walker right at the top of the list if Conley and DiVincenzo are out. So at the moment, I like Davion. For 12s, I go to Mo Wagner. It's just a nice little scoring burst onto your team. Cody Martin for 14-teamers is worth looking at. And then, irrespective of Conley and DiVincenzo, I've got Nickeil Alexander-Walker as a 16-teamer, but he shoots right to the top of that list if players are out. In terms of Yahoo and ESPN points, Grant Williams is the guy that sits there. I think he's not over-rostered, but he's rostered in too many leagues and category sort of formats for me to say he's a blanket ad, but otherwise, if he's available, then yeah, that is the direction that we go. For a list of more 10-team category league players, we start with Davion Mitchell, and then there is Isaiah Stewart, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Mo Wagner, Cody Martin, Buble Champagny in San Antonio. Again, understanding that Collins and Alexander Walker and Keldon Johnson, if he's available, will jump to the top of this list. For 12-teamers, we go to Kyle Filipowski. There's Trey Mann there. There's Moussa Diabate. The Wiki Cruz Boucher has been putting up about 20 minutes a night, and Bruno Fernando's out, so there's a little bit there. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's there. Tim Hardaway Jr. is there as well. And for deeper leagues, we can go to Josh Green, and we can actually consider streaming in the Pencil Harrison Barnes. Barnesy! Tristan Da Silva is on the list, Trey Jones, Cam Reddish, and Isaiah Collier. If you're in a Yahoo points leagues, these are the top 6 guys available in over 60% of leagues. Grant Williams, Davion Mitchell, Isaiah Stewart, Jaden McDaniels, Mo Wagner, and Stephon Castle. And for ESPN points leagues, it's a similar list. We start with Grant Williams. We go to Davion Mitchell, Isaiah Stewart, Jaden McDaniels, Flaming Mo Wagner, and Trey Mann. And that is a quick little preview for Thursday's action across the NBA. Don't forget, go ahead and hit the subscribe, thumb it up, leave your comments down below, and be good to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be proud of yourself. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Post-credit scene again. Didn't know it was going to happen, but we just got Walker Kessler ruled out. So yeah, Kyle Filipowski, value up. Drew Eubanks in the deeper leagues, value up. Post-credit scene. Jordan Clarkson also popped up as questionable too. So if he is out, then Isaiah Collier, Keontae George, and Colin Sexton. Decent bumps, and then deeper leagues, you look at John Juzang. Every day, post-credit scene in these shows. We're done.